I won the biggest jiu-jitsu tournament in the Pacific Northwest. In this video, I'll be reviewing my second no-gi round, giving you the details on blast knee cuts, armbar escapes, and how to get your back taken. The match starts off with a quick guard pull. Dan dives in with an underhook, but I roll through, almost taking his back. I'll transition to the double ankle sweep as he turns in to face me, and take him down for 2 points. From here, Dan locks into an ankle lock, so I opt to stand up as fast as possible and start breaking the feet off my hips. If you guys watched the last video, I went through the same thing with Eduardo and stuck to these strategies in order to avoid the ankle lock. This time, as I break the hook off my leg, I managed to successfully backstep and then transition into a toreando as both of Dan's legs are facing me, almost passing the guard. He does a good job realigning himself, then puts me in a closed guard before we get reset back in the middle. As we get going again, I pop my head out of Dan's grips and stand up to my feet. Notice how when I come up, my base is tripoded out, but my knees are pinched inward. This allows me to maintain balance while also blocking entry to the inside position under my hips. My goal right now is stripping hooks and grips until I can find my opening for one of my signature moves. I'll break the hooks so that his feet are lower than my knees, then dive onto a blast knee cut. This is a very intricate and methodical finishing sequence, so I'll break it down as best I can, but stay with me. As I begin the cut, my far arm shoots to an underhook while my right side breaks the impact to stabilize myself. Dan will try to rape pummel with his far arm, but I block it by lowering my head. The biggest problem he can create right now is with his inside arm pushing on my hip and throwing me over. To cancel that, I grab him by that elbow and pull his hand past my hip. For the last piece of supreme control, I'll change my head so I'm ear to ear with him, driving his head away from the game and stapling myself to that side of his body. Then finally, I'll push the legs away and sprawl my hip out to complete the pass. Out of the dominant positions from top, I prefer holding north-south. So to transition, I place a wedge on his hip and shift myself so I'm aligned up with him. As Dan initially tries to invert, I stop it by keeping my hips low and driving my head down into his hips to stuff him back down onto the mat. However, as he attempts again, I try to pull out, but he catches my arm and starts sending my joints into the shadow realm. I start spazzing out like I did day one of jiu-jitsu, and thankfully it's enough to wiggle my elbow out of danger. However, afraid he might snap onto it again, I make a huge blunder and allow my hips to fall over his torso. If this was the advanced division, I would have hit a killer knee bar. However, due to the rule set, knee bars are illegal, and because of that, Dan will eventually off-balance me enough to come up and start throwing in hooks to take my back. He nearly sneaks in a quick rear naked choke, but I hand fight and get the arm off my neck. My goal is to keep Dan high on my back and make an effort to try and force him to post a hand on the ground to keep his balance. Dan eventually gets his second hook in, putting him up 6-5 and in a super dominant position. The mindset that I had for this tournament was rock solid. It's more than just not giving up. It's not accepting a loss. I'll concede the points, I'll take the painful submission attempts, but I'm not walking away without taking home gold. I had to dig deep into that at this point, and finally I find my escape as Dan falls onto an armbar, and by controlling his leg and keeping his knees separated, I'm able to escape and get on top. I take a second to get my breath back, then step away and launch a toreando pass. However, because Dan turtled, I won't get any points for the guard pass, meaning I need to take his back or get him out. I choose to hunt the back, and I start by trying to get double underhooks around Dan's waist. From here, I'll use my heel to drag his heel out, exposing space for a hook. Normally once the first hook goes in, I'd switch to a seatbelt grip, but Dan starts attacking a Kimura, and this causes me to lose my position. Instead, I sit back and use my long and lanky legs to cheat my hooks in and solidify back control. With only a few seconds left on the clock, I know I just have to maintain control and let time expire, but Dan starts kicking things into overdrive and scrambles out of my grips. I'll allow him to escape the back, but I come up on top to keep the pace low. Dan pushes me away and tries to attack an ankle lock at the last second, but being very defensively comfortable in that position, I can shake his hooks off and collect one more guard pass to end the round. So that'll wrap up round 2. In the next video, we'll take on the finals. In the next video, we'll take on the semifinals and finals, hitting some crazy moves, and we'll see the return of the knee bar guy.
You gotta be fucking kidding me, you can't knee bar?